Ever since its introduction to the sport in 2018, the Halo has been a talking point for a number of reasons. From its design and appearance on the car, to how necessary it actually is in Formula 1. Everybody has an opinion. However, after we saw yet another example of just how important the Halo can be this past weekend, I'd hope that anyone that did still have doubt over the Halo now doesn't. But just in case you still do, firstly, what's it like only having 2 brain cells? And secondly, listen up, because today we're going over 4 instances where the Halo has saved a driver's life in Formula 1. Now obviously it makes sense to start with the most recent example, that being Guanyu Zhou this past weekend. After flipping over 160 miles per hour heading towards turn 1, it's safe to say we were all left speechless with our hearts in our mouths as we saw the rookie spin and slide upside down into the runoff before being launched into the catch fence and coming to a stop behind the tyre barrier. It was a terrifying crash, but one that thankfully Zhou was extracted from with no serious injuries. And when you look back at the replays and photos from the incident, it's clear to see that the Chinese driver has the Halo to thank for that. As with the roll hoop seemingly failing and detaching from the car, which is a whole other issue in itself, it was the Halo that was solely protecting him from having his head, well, you know. After the crash, Zhou came out thanking the marshals for their great work and admitted, "The Halo saved me today." That it did, lad. I'm very glad you're okay. Now from the latest life save to potentially the first. In a debut season for the Halos 2018, many, including myself, were quite skeptical of it, with the aesthetic impact and the lack of crashes that would warrant it being needed, putting a lot of fans, drivers and team members alike off the idea. However, it only took 13 rounds for all of us to be proven wrong. As in the run down to turn 1 at Spa, Nico Hülkenberg broke too late and sent Alonso flying into the air and onto the car of rookie Charles Leclerc. It was once again one of those crashes that just leaves you speechless, and with the damage visible on the car and specifically the Halo, you couldn't argue anything. It was clear that without it there, Leclerc would have had a nasty hit to the head. Similarly to Zhou, Leclerc praised the device post-race, reflecting on how lucky he had been to have it there, even admitting that "I've never been a fan of the Halo, but I have to say that I was very lucky to have it over my head today." However, he wasn't the only one with a change of heart, as even Toto Wolff, one of the Halo's biggest haters in the early days, said that gave all the justification. "I'm not a fan of the Halo, I think the aesthetics are terrible, but having saved Charles from harm and injury makes it all worth it." Wolff also had another chance to appreciate the Halo last year, with it this time hitting a little bit closer to home. As with Verstappen and Lewis having a big collision for the second time in 2021, Lewis was saved from a nasty bonk on the head as Verstappen mounted his car. Now we all know how the two sent it into turn 1, and no matter who you think was at fault, Verstappen, I think we can all agree that the scenes that followed were scary to say the least, as Max's rear landed directly on Lewis's car before rolling down onto his head/Halo on its way down. Now even though Lewis was still hit on the head, the Halo still prevented it from being much worse, with Lewis being thankful that it was just a sore neck he had to deal with and not a broken one. Thank God for the Halo, that ultimately I think saved me and saved my neck. By this point it's safe to say that most opposers to the Halo, like Toto, had been fully converted. 4 years ago I was fighting the Halo. Thank God I didn't win that fight. Aside from all of these crashes though, there is still one that I'm sure every single one of you watching will remember. Bahrain 2020. Now a lot of factors were involved in the lucky escape of Romain Grosjean at the 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix. From heroic marshals to the car survival cell and of course the Halo itself. As he flew into the barrier at 192 kph, impaling the car through it in the process, it doesn't take an expert to figure out how much worse it would have been if this happened 3 years earlier before the Halos were introduced. As the Halo took the impact of the fence instead of Romain himself, it meant that he was able to at the very least stay conscious and get himself out of that car to safety. He, like everyone else involved in these incidents, came out praising the invention. I wasn't for the Halo some years ago, but I think it's the greatest thing that we've brought to Formula 1. Without it, I wouldn't be able to speak with you today. With Ross Brawn adding to the praise with a very blunt but accurate statement. There is no doubt that the Halo saved the day. After today, nobody can doubt the validity of that. It was a lifesaver. So, Halo haters, if you're still out there, are you hearing this? The Halo is good and necessary, and to be fair, it doesn't even look that bad in the cars anymore. All these instances I've just mentioned are examples of lives being saved in F1 by the Halo. I've not even mentioned Formula 2, Formula 3, Formula E, and all those other categories of racing which have implemented the design. So respectfully, if you still think the Halo isn't needed in Formula 1, give your head a wobble and sort your life out. Because quite simply, you're just wrong. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, we'll see you next time.